Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And good morning, Instagram fam, friends and followers of as-Saafiy, and welcome to another episode of Revert Reflections. And a couple days ago, we continued our reflection on the belief, or our belief, in the concept of al-Wahy and the different elements of that belief. And we talked on Monday about the belief that the scripture that was revealed to us, the Quran, is the final testament of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He has committed Himself to protecting it and preserving it, and therefore we can completely and totally trust that the Quran that we have in our hands today and that we read and attempt to follow is the literal words of God. We can trust it completely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's words are in that Quran, and if we follow it, we are following Allah's words. Today I want to talk about another element of our belief in al-Wahy, and that is the belief that the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us supersedes, it supplants, and overrules the previous scriptures. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, He says, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ ومهيمنا عليه فاحكم بينهم بما أنزل الله ولا تتبع أهواءهم عما جاءك من الحق. He says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, what means we have revealed to you, Muhammad, the book in truth, the Quran in truth. The Quran is completely true. It can be trusted. And we revealed it as a confirmation of previous scriptures. Whatever is true in those previous scriptures, the Quran confirms it. And as a supreme authority which supersedes them, the Quran takes precedence, meaning that if we were to put the two scriptures, or the scriptures, the three scriptures, At-Torah, the Torah that was given to Moses, the Injil or the Gospel given to Jesus, and the Quran, if we were to put them all side by side, and we read a passage, and that passage is in agreement, all those the passages that we read from the other scriptures are in agreement with what is in the Quran, then that's a confirmation that what is in those passages is true. But if we read a passage or passages from those books that contradicts what is in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us the Quran is the supreme authority which supersedes them. The Quran is basically clarifying that what is in those books in that particular passage is false. So Allah goes on to say, so judge between them by what Allah has revealed, the Quran, and do not follow their whims and fancies instead of the truth. Don't follow their books, which contain some truth and much falsehood, instead of following the truth, the pure, pristine truth that was revealed to you in the Quran, which supersedes and overrules what they have. Whatever they have of truth is in the Quran. And the Quran refutes and rebuts the falsehood that those books contain. And in the hadith, and there's a message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us by saying this, that what we have in the Quran is sufficient for us. And we can see this even more clearly in the hadith, the famous hadith, collected by a number of the collectors of hadith, in which the Prophet ﷺ, in one version of it, he was approached by Umar ibn al-Khattab, who said something along the lines of, Inna nasma' a hadith min Yahud tu'jibuna, afatara an naktuba ba'daha. So Umar ibn al-Khattab, he came to the Prophet and he said, O Messenger of Allah, sometimes we hear some stories, some historical stories, some biblical stories, if you will, some scriptural references from the Jews. And they're impressive. Some of the stories that they tell are very impressive. And they provide details that are not in the Quran. Do you consider it acceptable that we write some of them, that we record some of them, that we collect some of them, put them in a book? In another version of the same hadith, the Prophet ﷺ came across Umar reading from the scriptures of the Torah, reading some pages from the Torah. And the Prophet was angered by this. In both cases, the Prophet ﷺ did not appreciate the statement that Umar made or the actions that Umar was engaged in. So he said to him, أَمُتَحَوِّكُونَ أَنْتُمْ كَمَا تَحَوَّكَتْ الْيَهُودُ وَالنَّصَارَى. He said, are you people confused as the Jews and Christians before you were confused? I have brought this revelation, he went on to say, لَقَدْ جِئْتُكُمْ بِهَا بَيْضَاءَ النَّقِيَّةً. He said, I have brought this revelation to you pure and pristine, free of the corruption that would lead one to doubt it. Meaning, the Quran I have given you is sufficient. The message the Prophet is conveying to Umar here, the Quran I have given you is sufficient. You don't need to look elsewhere because I brought it to you pure and pristine, free of the corruption that will make you doubt it or question or have to look for other information that would verify and confirm what is in the Quran. Then he went on to say something which is very significant and something that we as Muslims have to reflect on and make sure that our attitude vis-a-vis al-wahi is in compliance. He said, وَلَوْ كَانَ مُوسَى حَيًّا مَا وَسَعَهُ إِلَّا اتِّبَاعِي. He said, and if Moses were alive today, he would have no alternative except to follow me. Now let's take a step back, brothers and sisters, and think about what we said on Monday. And the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us, He promised to preserve it. And so we can have full confidence that the Quran that we have is Allah's words. And if we read it, we're reading Allah's words. If we follow it, we are following Allah's guidance. We are certain to be in compliance with what Allah wants from us because these are His words, which He promised to preserve as they are until the end of time. Also consider what we talked about today. That the Quran supersedes, supplants, and overrules the previous scriptures. What are the implications of these two facts? The Quran is perfectly preserved. It supersedes and overrules the previous scriptures. What are the implications of that? Well, let's reflect upon that, and inshallah ta'ala, let's talk about it tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. Until then, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless your houses, to bless your spouses, to bless your source of livelihood and income, to bless your children and your families. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you and make you blessed wherever you may be. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower you with His blessings and to surround you with His protection. Ameen, ameen, ya Rabbal Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak. An-Nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.